shall delve into some of these issues to x-ray this policy and move by the federal government to see how it impacts citizens positively. I have been joined here on the program by a professor of agricultural economics at the Joseph Sarwuan Tarkaa University, Makurdi, Professor Godwin Abu, who will be sharing thoughts with us on the program. Welcome to Perspectives, Professor Abu.
Good morning, listeners.
All right. And shortly, I will introduce our second discussant on the program who is just joining us on Perspectives. And if this is your first time tuning into the program, be informed that Perspectives is an audience participatory program which you can call in at 10 o'clock to share thoughts with us, and also the lines through which you can reach us once it is that time is 0814-335-9292, 0814-335-9292. You may send us a text message on 0912-699-9404. This program is also streaming live on all our social media platforms, including Facebook. Our second discourse on the program who just joined us, he is an economist and the Director General, Benue State Planning Commission, an associate professor of economics at the Benue State University, Makurdi, currently Director General of that commission. Dr. Jerome Aondohol has joined us on Perspectives. Welcome to Agate Radio, Dr. Aondohol.
Thank you very much, and good morning, all listeners.
Good morning. All right, let's kick off right away. I'd like to begin with you, Professor Abu. What do you make of this move by the federal...
Thank you, presenter. The one had hovered over 40% in the last couple of months, and Nigerians are getting frustrated. It leaves so much to be desired. One of the major, there are lots, prices may not come down as intended.
Okay, you say you are holding your reserves with us. What you make of this move earlier this week on Monday, the Minister of Agriculture and Food?
Again, within the economy, two evils that you can't just do without, which is that of inflation and that of unemployment. And, there are some kind of trade-off. When you want to increase, lower down, it means that you'll be upscaling up unemployment. And you want to lower down unemployment, you'll be upscaling inflation. So that move by government, trying to remember, and even in time that you are going to implement it, it takes some kind of, there are some kind of, holdbacks, before you are able to really achieve that objective to which you set out to do. So for me, I know too well that by the time these tariffs are being brought down and food start even coming in, it's going to take a while before we now start seeing prices of food. About products now, they'll be telling you
to implement policies to get more food imported into the country. What is the state of our food security?
Obvious. We are in a very, very bad state. That I'll make haste to mention is the farmers' headers crisis. We have them in 33 states out of the 36 farmers. Don't forget that are contributing to the rural markets. This is because they are not there now. We are now feeling it. And consequently, government first started by releasing essential grains. I think 42,000 metric tons of assorted grains were first released, then and on and on. Now, what is the whole idea of the strategic grain reserve? It is for the smallholder farmers to produce the excess for which the market cannot clear, will now be mopped up and stored in those places. Then for challenging times like this, such storage now will be released into the market to stabilize price. As we speak, Nathaniel, our strategic reserve is empty. It's empty. Consequently, government very dangerous signals that all is not well.
Okay, Dr. Aondohol, you are an economist. The state of food insecurity.
The effects are obvious. For once there is food insecurity, the science once you start having issues with food security, it starts affecting even the thinking, the workings of any citizen or any human being found within such a space. So it go down to even affect the extent to which children will become more stunted. It goes on to even affect the extent to which the knowledge power of our kids and even most of our people, will be, once there is food insecurity, people don't really think straight that much. So it even affects infrastructure to some extent. So it has some very negative implications on the economy once there is food insecurity.
Okay, Professor Abu, you alluded to the fact that you have reservations about this whole move, this essential.
That government will tackle this challenge headlong. Why are we in this state? Food security is defined in terms food and nutrition security. How is government doing? What is government doing to ensure that food is available? Investors had put in their money, had invested at that prevailing price. Now, government is going to bring in goods that had enjoyed relatively low average cost of production. What happens to domestic investment, domestic production, as the case will be? So the issue of availability, we need to tackle it. Look at the labor, for instance. As we speak, food is produced in our production, our demand to go and see these trucks that are taking these food items completely is the issue of affordance. Government but we are not talking about the cost of petrol. This an economy that is driven by road. You can imagine how much we are paying for petrol. Consequently, these are all the issues government needs to address almost immediately. The food they are importing is not sustainable in the long run because they are using dollar component to import those items, just like the petrol as the case will be. And we would ask that when would we start our domestic effect that is going to affect food prices as the case will be, because the food will leave one point of production to where it is ultimately consumed at a very, very exorbitant price, and this again to the investors will reflect it on the unit price of their sales. And this is exactly what all the things the government needs to address, rather than just putting all effort in this temporal measure to just manage the situation at the moment.
With your co-discussant on the program,
when you're trying to implement a particular policy, there are short-term measures and there are long-term measures that you take to issues. Removal of tariff is a short-term measure.
I beg your pardon. Suspension. It's like it's no removal. Just
suspension. Okay, fine. Because it's going to. I think it says about 6 months or something like that.
150 days. That is cumulatively within that range.
All right.
Yes.
So now, when you look at what the government is trying to do in that, what you try to do with the Trans-Saharan route, one they are now thinking of linking from either those, and they are going to be seen in 6 lanes. 6 lanes with these things are with the hope that. In terms of the communities that are going to be assessed, especially 156 local governments, that these rules will pass through. And then when you now talk about the communities, close to about 216 communities that are farming communities, with about 7 special agricultural processing zones that are going to be assessed. Not to talk about the small dams also that are also going to be assessed within these corridors that these routes are going to be passing. So in terms of accessibility and affordability, in terms of accessibility and availability, let me put it that way, this move by the federal government, which not too long, the whole of North Central were in Lafia here, trying to, as stakeholders, trying to talk and then deliberate on some of these other routes that are going to be passing through their states. The governor of Kogi was there. Our governor too was in Nasarawa with the governor of Nasarawa State. They were all out there trying to see, and even the municipal plans that we help, solve some of those problems of availability and accessibility, as he did mention. Then in terms of affordability, the president also is trying to, put in some kind of so-called palliative short-term measures. I think he just announced not too long ago of the Presidential Advisory Economic Advisory Committee, where Dangote and this man from UBA, Tony, they are also on that Presidential Council, trying to see how they can bring in their wealth of experience in trying to see how they can solve some of these problems. And Dangote Refinery, we are expectant that not too long from now it will come to stream. And once it comes to stream, the extent to which, monies that we use, talk about the order looking forward towards reaching out to close to 100,000 families, that's household, where they'll be paid 50,000 naira for 3 months. And for Benue, if you put that together, it comes to close to 15 billion that will be entering maybe the Benue economy. And that also will tend to provide succor, to the most vulnerable. And a whole lot of other issues that the president is trying to do to at least short term, as they provide this short term succor in terms of affordability to families. The expected long-term gains or expected long-term commitment are these corridors that I just mentioned.
Okay, Dr. Aondohol, pointedly, from economic indicators showing, with this move suspending taxes in the immediate address food inflation in the country?
Like I did open up discussion, I said to some, because of lag, recognition of that, and to tell out something. That is to say that the current prices of items as they were and as they are now, will not just drastically come down, because people generally, once you buy an item, in economists we call that prices are downward sticky. Downward sticky means that it is difficult once prices move up for them to immediately come down. Why? Because the people that have bought items at such prices, earlier prices, if you tell them to bring them down immediately, even though that suspension is there, they've imported new, let them sell that one off first before they can now start bringing down their prices, or at least let them break even, at the prices to which they bought that. And because of all of these decisions, within almost immediately, but after a period, which I am looking at months or so, that's when we start seeing the drop in the prices of food items.
Okay, dear listener, if you are just tuning in, you're listening to Perspectives on Agate Radio 95.5 Star FM Makurdi. We are discussing the federal government's suspension of taxes. I have a professor of agricultural economics at the Joseph Sarwuan Tarkaa University, Makurdi, Professor Godwin Abu. I also have with me an economist, an associate professor of economics at the Benue State University, Makurdi currently. And later at 10 o'clock, you may call in to participate. The line through which you can reach us is 0814-335-9292, 0814-335-9292. In the meantime, the text message and WhatsApp line is already at 9404, 0912-699-9404. You may also listen to us by logging on to our website on www.ageteradiotv.com. Also, if you follow our social media pages on Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, as well as Instagram, and all these platforms were there to serve you. Also, if you have your Radio Garden app on any device at all, you may listen to Agate Radio there. Professor Abu, speak to us. The elite, given that the smallholder farmers or people driving the market economy as agriculture is concerned are not the kind of big people that import food in the country. What is your reaction to this?
Yeah, just like you rightly stated, the food challenge impacts this differently different segment of the economy, especially smallholder farmers. For instance, in our rural communities, we have to buy food from the township to take to the rural communities as it stands. And just like my co-panelist is just saying, you see, first, we expected the government to have estimated the total demand for food. Then, what we have at the moment, then the deficit, the gap. It is that gap now that in the short run, we can now import to break even, as the case will be. But nothing was done like that completely. So the extent to which this policy becomes effective, one, depends on government bureaucracy. It will take some time. We don't know how long, But again, too, we are such a crossroad that issues of policies again too may also farmers. As we speak, they don't have any alternative. If you go to the rural markets, it is from the rural markets that they aggregate, then it comes to the big and it's been traded now. There's literally nothing there. absolutely nothing to listen now. So those of us who are in townships now, we have to buy food now and take to the communities, and we cannot. It's not sustainable. Consequently, government needs to do something more than what it's doing at the moment. It needs to be enhanced and activated almost at the same time. For instance, now the state government say that I have natural endowment for agricultural production should be given incentives to upscale. Land is a challenge. Why would NADA not come to Benue Nasarawa and open up more land as the case will be? So these are all the things too we want to see that are complementary if government must address this both in the immediate and long term as anticipated.
Okay, Dr. Aondohol, what is your reaction to the fears of people that this whole policy may be targeted at just benefiting the big investors, big players in
elites, or maybe the bigger players within the market sector? Because and maybe even in terms of issues of that deficit gap that my co-panelist was saying, as quantities to which they are expecting such importation. So I feel that maybe in terms of data, they might have able to do their own analysis and then come up with a particular gap to which they are looking towards seeing how within a particular frame of time, and that's why they are even targeting that this suspension should just be within some six months or so, hoping that within that period they might be able to get enough to at least bring succor to the entirety of the Nigerian citizens. So for the smallholder farmers too, I think the model now, which even the governor of the day, that's for Reverend Father Dr. Hassan Yomalia has been preaching, is that of cooperatives. That most of our persons, people at the rural areas should start now forming cooperatives. Once they form cooperatives, they should get some space of land. The government don't bring in their tractors, do the farming for them, give them inputs, give them seedlings, and at the end, they will still sell at their prices to government, and the government will still buy. Instead of maybe buying at relatively maybe small peanuts. And the thing now is that the governor too is thinking that, look, with this drop, suspension, we can also get some maybe grants from the federal government. By the time they make such importation, we use those inputs and able to stretch it out to our farmers. So I don't think it is not just targeted only for the big time farmers, because the whole thing is a syndicated move that all the 36 state governors have sat down and said, look, this is what we need to do, at least to be able to bring
this arrangement. Based on, we're going to be analyzing this step by step, but under the arrangement of suspending the tariffs, duties, and taxes, the federal government says the window, specifically the crops, the food items specifically listed in this category are said to include those of, okay, I'm trying to figure them out. Specifically, they include cow peels as well as maize, brown rice, some of these. And the government says under this arrangement, the imported food commodities will be subjected to a recommended retail price. Economically, how can the government achieve this? A recommended, how about those who patronize? Where is the position of the citizen under this whole arrangement?
I think to some extent, to be able to implement that is a little bit of difficult, because when you look at the dynamics of demand and supply, even if you tend to recommend it that it be sold at a particular point, maybe at some kind of pricing, and maybe the supply, the demand still exceeds that of the supply, those recommended prices, and big stone, and then dropping it water so that it cause some kind of ripple effect. So if those supply, our markets, I believe that to a large extent, that issue of them selling at that particular retail prices will be feasible. But if that is not done, it still becomes a bit of worrisome.
Okay, Professor Abu, let me have your thoughts on the government moving to have a recommended retail price for some of, particularly the listed food items, the staples. But one is also wondering, why is it only the staples? Why is it not food in general, but only those ones outlined? But speak to us within this context.
Yes, even for the food items outlined, it will be difficult for government to regulate that market. Two, peg the unit price. So it's not welfare. So they are investors. It's not government itself that is doing this. It's private individuals that are doing this, and it is for profit. If it is for profit, just like my co-discussant had said, we are not going to leave anything to probability. Demand will automatically exceed supply, because as it stands, the deficit gap, government had not declared it to us, and the quantity for which they are bringing in is just a tip in the ocean to black market, just like we saw for petroleum products, as the case will be. So it's not going to work. There's no way government is going to regulate these particular commodities, because all of them will disappear. If Jerome, Dr. Aondohol imports, I will now go and get from Dr. Jerome, sublet, and before it gets to the market itself, it will have changed hands for over like 6-7 vendors, as the case will be. So government can't regulate it as it stands in the first instance.
Okay, Dr. Aondohol, do you share a dissenting opinion?
Just like I did open discussion, mine is that, there is a fear, yes, it's palpable. It's palpable. But again, the essence of discussion, most of these issues, is that once we are able to know that these are some of the problematics that are going to come from that kind of a process, then indeed, what needs to be done is that you start now looking for ways to which you can try to stem that. So one of the ways which I believe that can be done, if it really was on such items, the expectation is that, yes, indeed, the pricing of rice, the prices of maize now should at least come down. It is for the government to see that, okay, if they can bring those individuals bring in such food, the government buys the food off them. So once it buys everything of them, they can now channel in through maybe our agricultural Minister of Agri, through their DEX officers, and then the divisional agri officers to our local government, and then people now start buying from these government channels. So once you go there, it will be well announced that, look, the prices of so item in terms of rice is so amount, and so metric tons have been able to channel in to a particular state and to a particular local government, chairman, and to a particular divisional agri officer. So it becomes a bit of, if it's well managed within the context of how I've just described it, my belief is that maybe we should cause some of those leakages that might be. Leakages, they will certainly be there, but if we put it through this process that I just mentioned, I believe that to a large extent we'll close most of those leakages.
Okay, Dr. Aondohol, the listed food items, Nigerians may be wondering, why is it that the federal government just decided to isolate only a few items, a few of the food items, maize, wheat, husk, brown rice, and cowpeas? Why should it not be food in general? Is it only these terms that Nigerians are grappling with the hardship of food inflation concerning them?
There's something about staple food. Staple foods are those foods that at least when you eat them, they provide some kind of energy. They energize you to be able to do much work. And if you look at that, for most household, I wouldn't say, but let me just give an example of my own household. If you want to even cook ruam, as we call it in our local dialect, if you ask my children between ruam and rice, which one would they prefer, they will keep telling you that they will prefer, let me give them rice. So rice, as it were, is the most easily accessible food to most households. So those staple foods are foods that are easily accessible, easily affordable, and then some kind of it brings some kind of joy also within families that take such food. So those staple foods of rice, maize, and as it were wheat, for people who are what do you call this? Who are sick, that don't normally like taking sugar.
Yes, the diabetic.
Diabetic. Thank you very much. That's the name I was trying to. For the diabetic patients, wheat is quite affordable to them. So if you look at the foods that the government did targeted, those are the cool food that within the. I think that's the more reason why those staple foods have been targeted.
Okay, Professor Abu, From your point of view as an agricultural economist, is it possible the government would have think beyond just the staples and made it a pronouncement on food in general?
No, government, there's wisdom in selecting these items.
Okay.
Closely related to what my co-panelists had mentioned, something like wheat. Wheat has a lot of functions, especially for bread, for instance, now bread and other confectionaries. So a lot of money before now is being used in importing it. Government had pumped in a lot of money to have invested in the few states that have the capacity to produce wheat in Kano, Jigawa, and the environ. And the yield there is fantastic. But before now, one of the major, the heavy feeders or determinant of our foreign earnings is importing wheat and rice, for instance. So that's why government now said, okay, if we now bring in this, because that's where, just like you said, the demand for all these items, and these items take judicial notice that maize and wheat, for instance, the livestock feeds, for instance, livestock industry, for our protein intake, we need a lot of maize again to be fed into as carbohydrate component of the livestock feeds. So maize itself, man and animal are competing for it. So at any point in time, it is not enough. It's not decent. So it's very, very critical. That's why government had to target it. Then maize and rice, they are cereals. Then cowpea, that's the cowpea now is legumes. That's a protein component. I think that's exactly what. And these are the things too that households they make.
Nutrition.
Exactly, and large part of household consumption items.
Okay, another component of what the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security did mention was that, in addition to regulating the importation, the recommended retail price by the private sector, the importation by the private sector, the federal government will import 250,000 metric tons of wheat, 250,000 metric tons of maize. He added that the imported food commodities in their semi-processed state will target supplies to the small-scale processors and millers across the country. Professor Abu.
Yes.
Is it possible for the government to achieve this? And of the food items that were stated, why is it that the federal government now targeted the importation of wheat and maize in particular, and not rice? 250,000 metric tons. From an agricultural economist point of view, help us to understand what may have been the motive behind this.
Yes, you see, before now, there are small, medium, and large-scale industries that have been established to process these raw materials into different consumer goods. Now, on account of what is happening in terms of factors of production, smallholder farmers that used to produce and supply to these citizens is not available again. And a lot of those mills, they are operating on epileptic installed capacity. A mill that should operate on 80-90% capacity installed is doing less than 10%. Consequently, there's a need. These things now are coming as raw materials to be processed into commodities that are desirable by the consumers. Government, in our wisdom, is not importing the final commodity, final phase, because one of the components for the food we're talking about is the utility of processing, utility of transportation, utility of pricing, and utility of storage. So these items now, for the processing now, it is these mills, a lot of private sectors have. I am a rice miller myself. Okay,
So, which is to say, you may possibly benefit this government initiative.
Why not? Because we're looking for rice now down the field.
Okay.
So we are looking for paddy now to process.
Okay.
Now the paddy that will come, there are a lot of rice mills from now to process rice. Why are we not bringing in the head rice? Why are we bringing in the semi-processed? Because if we bring in the head rice now, then our mill material now to produce, as the case will be. And if I produce there's a factor beyond, above which if I produce for you by bringing in this, so that you can now sell at a price that the market will clear. That's exactly the thinking that the government is bringing into these items. Look at the bread, for instance. At some point, it was a policy of government to see how we can include cassava flour in the confectionaries, in bread. But we did that. In some places, it was good. But again, to cassava has its own challenge. Because from 3 vendors, you are going to have different particle size, different color and textures. So all this now makes it difficult to standardize cassava. That was why Nigerians demands now taste for confectionaries that are completely wheat is on the high. So government needs to do something to meet it up, in addition to efforts to step up domestic production.
Okay, Dr. Aondohol, give us your thoughts of what you make of the government's move in importing 250,000 metric tons of wheat and 250,000 metric tons of maize. What impact would that have on the economy, particularly for the household with regards to food consumption?
Most of the issues, I think my co-panelists just did raise them. One is the issue of trying to see that they do not lay off labor, which is paramount, and that has to do with consumption. Because once you start laying off people, it adds to the worries, to the crisis that we're having. Where we find ourselves in, we don't want to have more frustration maybe on the streets. So with that import, just like my co-panelist just mentioned, is that they are going to still have possibly even increase the employment of labor services, and once you increase picking people up the street, these issues of when you even pick 1 or 2 persons up the street, you might be surprised that 1 or 2 persons that have picked up the street, a household by itself, maybe you're talking about close to 6. If it's 4 people, you're talking about 16 people that have picked up the street, because it's one household, the minimum is maybe 4 persons that are in a particular household. So when you pick the head of a household up the street and employ that kind of person, you're picking about 16 people off the street, and it reduces the extent to which you're going to have frustrations on the street. So, and again, it enhances consumption. That is, you're enhancing the consumption of 16 people. And when you're talking about investment is dependent on consumption. So, and if you're talking about economic growth itself is a combination of what happens with consumption as well as investment. So, and with that move that the government did, is that they are trying to help the smallholder farmers, on their investment capabilities, so that they can be able to pick people up the street, pay them, and then when those people have income, they can use that income to be able to buy and make purchases on other items as well.
Sector is also joining in the importation of food. Should Nigerians have a cause to worry that their government, that food, what are the kind of measures that we make as citizens to drive food security, the government being in the vanguard of this, beyond importation?
Yeah, you see, it's like everybody is getting agitated. Rules make those two. So it should be a private sector-led strategy, as the case will be, because government. Let us not forget, if goods now being imported by a particular government now gets into a particular locality, the distribution now may likely be on what is at before us now is governance. Consequently, government needs to just stay clear and create those enabling environments for investors. Now let the direct participation, as the case will be. Government should just set the ground rules and be the umpire.
Okay. Dr. Aondohol, you are itching to say something. I will allow you to say it quickly before we open the telephone lines.
This has always been the debate over time in economics, that between the classicals and the Keynesian economists. The classicals are of the opinion, which is what he has just did mention, that government should stay clear. Everything should be made determinant based on the forces of demand and so invisible hand. Sometimes you ask, where is that invisible hand? So, for most persons who don't really don't understand some of the distortions or maybe the discussions on this premise. So, but the invisible hand, it comes to a point in time that actually some problems, they are structural, that invisible hand cannot be well over time. So, but for me, I believe that, there are some areas, even in terms of business, that the government needs to at least, just step in a little bit of equity within that particular kind of setup, so that at least they know that their eyes are there. Even though they are not participating fully, but some little bit of equity, they know that they have a say once in a while to be able to see aside setting the regulations and ground norms for businesses to operate. With that kind of complementarity, I believe that that is what will take us to the promised land, and be saying that government should just set up regulations, set up rules, and we just need the government to step in once in a while. Maybe for most developing economies, some of our big brothers, big brothers in terms of the economies, as the IMF, World Bank, and maybe the most developing economies, they've already reached a particular stage. They had come through a particular process, and that process began. If you look at the Rosto's growth plan, stages of growth based on Rosto's stages. So, but if you look, and even mass consumption. So if you look at those stages, we are at a particular stage, and at a particular stage, there are particular features and characteristics that are associated with a particular stage. But what I see for Nigeria now is that Nigeria is within it. That's mass production or commercialization. Maybe at that point in time, possibly the government can start, devolving itself from most of partaking in businesses, maybe reducing their equity, in businesses. So, for me, I believe that no matter how it is, given the stage that we find ourselves as a developing economy, the government needs to once in a while just come in, have some little bit of equity, but allow the private sector, take the lead in whatever activity that they want to do.
Okay, we will see how it pans out. But above all, as we go along, we are going to be asking again and again where the average, the common man stands in between all of this, between the government and the private sector, especially as it concerns the government move to allow him should be accruing on it for a 150-day period. That's 6 months. You may just be tuning in, dear listener. The program is Perspectives on Agate Radio. That is our focus of discussion. Leading the discussion is a professor of agricultural economics at the Joseph Sarwuan Tarkaa University, Makurdi, Professor Godwin Abu. I also have an associate professor of economics at the Benue State University, Makurdi, currently the Director General, the Benue State Planning Commission, Dr. Jerome Aondohol. These are the discussants we have on the program. And you can call in on 0814-335-9292, 0812-699-9404, 0912-699-9404. Remember to include your name and where you are sending in your text from, so we may take it as your contribution. Hello, good morning, and welcome to Perspectives.
Good morning.
Welcome to the program.
This is Patrick Nakombo calling from Makurdi, Benue State.
Okay, Patrick Nakombo, which part of Makurdi are you calling in from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Judge's Quarters.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to thank you people of this topical issue for discussion. And I want to also greet the discussants in the studio and yourself, the presenter.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yes, I would like to make a contribution on this topic. I want to first of all say that it's commendable for the president to decide to take this step to address the issue of food insecurity, at least in the temporary measure, as a temporary measure. But like a well laid out plan, that when you allow issues happen and then you now want to reactively address them, the subsidy is gone. That statement was a very powerful statement. And you won't be surprised that most of the things that are happening now are either directly or indirectly connected to that state act to the NNPC and say, look, refineries must work. After that, one will expect that you should now say, okay, these subsidy claims, I want a thorough audit of subsidy claims. I want to know exactly what the actual amount for subsidy claim is. And then, and if you are able to do that, you now sit back and say, okay, this is the actual subsidy amount.
Okay, Patrick, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Tie it to our topic of conversation so you may conclude, because going that route may be too long. Yes.
But what I'm saying is that the subsidy was removed abruptly, and it has resulted into a lot of economic issues that are a little more complicated to resolve. Now, if you say people should import food, yes, another thing you have to deal with is the dollar, the pressure on the dollar. Because if we import, say, 50 kg bag of rice at the current exchange rate, even without paying duty, you may be surprised that the landing cost of that 50 kg in Nigeria may still be a little higher than what the local rice may sell for. So even as he's trying to resolve these issues, you will see that there will be other issues that come with it, products into the country. But they have to source the dollar as they are able to source it. So if they source that dollar and it's not, it's very expensive, even the food they will import, we hope that the policy will yield the desired dividend, so the Nigerian people will be able to afford very big.
Connect at that moment. Thank you for your contribution. The issue of the value of Naira should be addressed. And I think Dr. Aondohol, respond to that pointedly, because it's a serious concern, the devaluing of the Naira, and here we are talking about importation. How does that add up economically?
I think he has a point out there, but the government in other phases of the government is bringing succor in some other areas. For instance, the issue of farm inputs that have to do with maybe fertilizer now. But two is that the government, again, like I did said much earlier, that for each state, they're saying that they are going to provide one. So like I had said at the beginning of the program, for Benue State, expectedly we should be looking at close to 15 billion coming into the economy. So those are all in terms of exchange rate keep rising, and some of these products are even coming at expectedly high rates. At least you're giving them some kind of support from this other area. So I believe that that's what the government is trying to do.
So the issue of the Naira should be addressed. Professor Abu, do you have something to add on this briefly?
Yes, especially when we put this comment side by side, government intention to regulate the prices when the commodities get in here. Like I had mentioned in passing, that look, then that will now determine how much the goods is landing in our markets, and we cannot guarantee that it will come anything lower than what we're having at the moment. Then two, a while ago, the Kano State government had to bust open warehouses. In as much as this is coming to the market, there are marketers, agents that are going to stockpile these things and again take adequate measures. Otherwise, as it is coming, it is flying out again, and this problem will be left unsolved.
Okay, we hope the issues, the intricacies should be adequately addressed to give this whole policy a good direction, because as it stands, the minister did not even welcome to the program.
Yes, I'm Kwaza Vincent calling from North Bank, Makurdi.
Okay, Kwaza.
Yes, I greet Agate Radio and the guest policy at this particular time that the cost of food items has increased drastically in our country this time. But what is not enough, but they must add the one of enforcement. Because now that the cost of the aim of the program is to bring down the cost of food items. Now, if there is no follow-up on enforcement, now the marketers will now take advantage of this reduction in the tax to make more profit against the indigenous or the citizens of the country. So the federal government should try and follow it up and then enforce this policy so that the aim of the policy will be achieved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kwaza Vincent. We appreciate you for calling in. The line is open 0814-335-9292. 0814-335-9292. Send us a text to 0912-699-9404. 0912-699-9404. You may also listen to us by logging onto our website on www.igetradiotv.com. Also, follow our social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, as well as X, formerly Twitter. We're available on all these platforms to serve you. Hello, good morning, and welcome to the program.
Yeah.
Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Morning. Welcome to Perspectives.
Thank you. I am Mondachi Gabriel from Tarkaa.
All right, good to have you on the program, Mondachi Gabriel.
My regards to the guests behind.
Thank you. Please make your submission.
The federal government policy is a welcome development, but there are what we want. There are some things that may hinder it. That we do not select any agent to bring these food items. It's not a government agent that are going to bring these food items. Maybe individual, so they have control over it, and there are no price control to control this. To monitor this policy. If it is not monitored, to not farmers by providing security for them, enabling environment where they can farm this crop that you can feel it at home here. You know, the one that are going to import cannot even be enough for everybody in the market. You may not touch it at all because it is finishing. This 9 months or something, not even enough. So we want the government to do more than this. So it's a welcome development. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ondachi Gabriel. We appreciate you for calling in. Dr. Aondohol, Kwaza Vincent raised an issue, which as we go along, we're going to interrogate. But now that it's coming from one of the callers, let's speak to it briefly, particularly the suspension of the taxes and given the exploitative attitude of Nigerians in general. Do you see this working out, bringing down the food prices, given the tendency for Nigerians, in most cases, to exploit? What would be the benefit of the citizens eventually?
We had already mentioned this when we started this discussion about the possibility of this not being the objective of removal, the suspension of tariff, on some of these staples. He did mention something about enforcement, and I had already, made a suggestion to that effect that number one is that if the government doesn't want to subsidize it, by buying, that is state governments, by buying off most of this, possibly might even start from the federal government by buying off these items from the importers. Then the state government buys them off the federal government, and then we channel them down to our Ministry of Agric and then divisional agric officers, insisting that they sell a particular rates. I think at that level, by the time you pass this kind of information on some kind of quantities to a particular, maybe a local government, maybe state, we know the quantum that is going to come within that state, and again know the quantum that is going to distribute within the various local governments, and we adjust to a large extent. You can stem those kind of leakages, and maybe the enforcement to which he had alluded to, might be
now taking an advantage that the window of duties and taxes is no longer there. So how can government even move in to enforce any recommended pricing?
Which is what I buy, bring it in. The government can take it off from there.
Okay.
They can take off. It's like they are take off. They are off takers. They can off take from such private purchases that are being imported. They take off all of those items. Then the state government buys from them, from the federal government, pays. So the federal government now pays that I did mention. Take it to the Ministry of Agric. The Ministry of Agric takes it down to the local government. The local government does through that what is happening currently, giving even fertilizer, because fertilizer, as it were, is currently being subsidized within the state. I think most I think a bag of fertilizer in the market is about 40,000 naira. So it's because of the fact that the state government is subsidizing the farm inputs, like sprayers. Because not too long, I think about 2 or 3 days, through 2 days or so, I went home. My folks home were buying, they were very happy that, look, all of these issues are there. They've had fertilizers at when due and are subsidized rates. So they were all excited and really happy. So I believe that if we can still use that kind of a model, we're able to arrive at this issue of our local farmers not being able to attain or get these items at the rates to which at reduced rates.
Okay, Professor Abu, you are itching to weigh in on this, please.
Yes, I am afraid that the private sector importing these things will want to push it down through their distribution channels to the markets. And that is why government is saying...
I will beg your pardon. Yes. I will beg you to interrupt you. We have had repeated calls. Wait and just...
Good morning.
Welcome to the program. Hello. Oh, lost connection. Please continue your thoughts. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, so the private sector will not want to import for the fun of it. They will want to use their distribution channels to push these things through the market. And that is why government may take place. Is now saying that they want to regulate. Now, any policy whose implementation will cause riot or require excessive regulation or enforcement, you are slow to it, as the case will be. Now, you see, the issues of enforcement is coming on and in and out. Enforcement, as long as it is a government policy, it will be subject to abuse. We had a various task force. I'm using the petroleum product as a case study, where some of us had to sleep in the filling station just to mistake about it. The guy is out to make his profit. It's not so. It is that profit margin now. What my co-panelist will call a normal profit in a short while. Otherwise, what government can regulate is that profit, that margin. Otherwise, the guy is going to factor in this external component vis-a-vis the cost of the dollar and all the other associated logistics.
Okay. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you for holding on the line. Welcome to the program.
Yeah. My name is Jonathan Ichawe. I'm calling from Hoodco Estate, North Bank.
Okay,
Makurdi.
Good to have you on the program. Kindly make your submission, sir.
Yes. The importation of particularly wheat and maize is very good. I commend the president for this initiative. But like someone yet says, the actions are reactive. I think our government must be proactive now. Like someone else also said, I don't think they taught us well to a subsidy.
Okay.
And they worsened the situation by merging the parallel market of foreign exchange and the officials or pronouncing that they are merging it. That I think this was a greater error than even the subsidy removal. These are, and then coupled with the insecurity. Now, my own advice is that why they are taking this fire brigade action on food items, they should not stop ensuring that there is peace, that our farmers go back to the farm. Many have already missed this farming season, but they should not miss the next farming season. Otherwise, we will continue importing and importing and importing. May I also say that rice is not a staple food in Nigeria. It's in our rural areas. It is staple food only in township areas. One of your discussants says his children will prefer rice for WAP. That is the people in township.
Okay.
It's like in my house, we eat rice. Even I live here in town. And for time immemorial, I eat rice only once in a week. And even now, I'm even afraid of buying rice on the market. Unless I buy this GMO with the one where they have say they have done it with human ingredients in it. So that is the other thing that we should be careful.
Okay.
The GMO product, we have to be careful about. There is so much controversy over them. That's my fear about the cowpeas. But the maize is very important, both for human being consumption and animal consumption. So we thank the government for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank the panelists also. They have tried hard to justify many things. But there is no justification for any government to import food, particularly Nigerian government in Nigeria.
Okay.
We have so much
All right.
to land to farm, and we should be exporting food, not importing.
Thank you, sir.
Anyway, thank you very much.
We appreciate you. Thank you, Jonathan Ichabe, for calling in. Let's take some messages before we come back. This one says, good morning, Mr. Nathaniel and your guests in the studio. If the government know that they can not regulate these staple food prices, it will be better for them not to even start the importation, as it will make no impact or difference. We all need all kinds of food presently to survive, and not staple food alone. Vincent Akko from Wadata. All right. Thank you, Vincent, for your opinion. Another one here says, good morning, Nathaniel and the guests in the house. My name is Abite Teso from Logo 1 in Makurdi. I have two questions. One, why did the government... Two, can it be possible for the government to put enforcement law for the control of commodities to provide secured environment for eradication of food insecurity? Okay, Teso Abito, thank you. Abite will respond to your posers shortly. Another one here says, good morning, Nathaniel Nongu. I want to say my special thanks to you and the entire staff of Agate Radio for enlightening us on what is going on around the world. God bless you more in Jesus' name. Tsongo Teira from Goma. Okay, Tsongo, thank you very much. We appreciate you. Another one here says, what are these essential food stuff they are talking about? Please, can you mention them, please? It's Zwamo T. Zwamo, I hope we mentioned them. Maybe you joined in after we had gone past, but as you listen, you get a refresher. Thank you very much for sending your message in. There are some more here, but unfortunately there are no names to them, so we may not take them. From our WhatsApp box, Benjamin Manasseh says, good morning, everyone in the studio. My name is Benjamin Removal, and also work on food regulation cycle by giving the marketers some few weeks to bring back normal price of food items. Okay. Thank you, Benjamin. So Benjamin suggests that the food price could be regulated from the fuel subsidy policy, the removal of the subsidy. Okay, let's address some posers here from Abite Teso, who is asking us, why did the government reserve other foodstuffs in removing tariff on food supply? We had addressed that earlier too, but I think he joined in much later. So a refresher, Dr. Aondohol. Let's request you to speak on that briefly. And he said, can it be possible for the government to put an enforcement law to control commodities? That I think he meant price to provide this.
I think, like you rightly said, I think we had talked enormously on that we have. We had in a much earlier is that, for rice has its component of carbohydrate, the space of the entirety of the Nigerian citizens, the tons are quite massive, and it also accounts for...
I apologize to interrupt you. Just okay. One moment, then you wrap up. Hello, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Welcome.
How are you, sir?
I am fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. My greeting to the analyst in the video.
Warm greetings to you.
Yes, my contribution is that...
What is your name before your contribution?
Okay, my name is Joe Gundu. I'm calling from Sekumbe, particularly here in Makurdi.
All right, Joe Gundu, go ahead.
Yes, my contribution is that temporary suspending tariffs and other things concerning this our local goods importation is a very good development. But I want to emphasize that it is wrongly done, because already we have suffered the consequences of removal of fuel subsidy. So it's just like you have killed somebody and you have taken that person to the hospital to go and revive that person again. That would be impossible. Because of the fuel issue, we have neglected other sectors of life in Nigeria here that we have been surviving on more than the issue of petroleum. It is this removal of fuel subsidy until President Tinubu say that it has been removed. So I don't know whether it will have a lot of impact on we Nigerians because everything has gone bad. The economy has gone bad. Everything is bad. So I think there's no way we can.
Kindly conclude your thoughts. Just a refresher because we have spoken quite elaborately.
Then in terms of maize, we had already also alluded to the fact that maize for animals because from some kind of a component part of the feeds that we give to animals. In terms of wheat aside us who consume it, for those of us who are diabetic, we also use wheat, and then maybe for the purpose of bread, which has been used, to do our bread. And so if we look at these staple foods that have just been mentioned, those are the reasons why the government decided that they should look at this, pick up these particular items and maybe intervene in their behalf.
Okay. Professor Abu, this also went further to say, can it be possible for the government to put enforcement law for the control of commodities and to provide secured...
Cannot go to jump into the market and start regulating, So what government are done in the interim is to see how it's going to stimulate the market, the supply side of it. There's a shock, and government is responding to that shock. And just like my co-panelist did mention, this is a short-term thing. In a short while, too, government will make all the necessary adjustment just like a vehicle with a weak battery. This is just a one-time push. The moment the economy picks up, that will be all, and no need for government to come to the market to regulate or specify other items other than these ones that have been head-picked as essentials.
Okay. With the challenge of food insecurity on our hands and the federal government moving about importation, what can we do to locally sustain both enhanced food security? Benue, it bears the appellation of the food basket of the nation. What homegrown measures would you advance for Benue to key into, Professor Abu?
One, the smallholder farmers and these are people that have been integrated to take agriculture as a business, not longer a subsistence level. One of the callers, Jonathan Ichabedi, talked about insecurity. Insecurity is a new entrant and the most damaging to the food security at the moment. We are talking, one of the key components, whether we like it or not, is first food availability. And the availability, which is the key component of the food security, food and nutrition security, stems from the fact that is the production arena safe enough? That's that issue we need to address. So all our IDPs that are displaced, initially we felt that they were temporal solution challenges, but as it stands now, they are still upward of 8 to 10 years. Again, this is not acceptable. Government, federal government, and like I said, the farmer header crisis, we have that conflict in 33 states as enumerated by one Amnesty report. So why is and in the outcome of is that a lot of these persons on account of the environment are staying in camps, so in an era like this. So government needs to first and foremost secure the farm environment. Then two, the inputs. As we speak in agriculture now, labor cost is just unimaginable. It's even very difficult for you to get labor as the case be. In some communities, labor have to come from the neighboring one. That's as bad as that. So government again too will have to find a way to provide this labor by mechanization. My co-panelist talked about a model on cooperatives. Cooperative is very good. If first the capacity of the cooperative is enhanced, then they can pull resources together, then productivity can be enhanced.
Okay, Dr. Aondohol, you are an economist and at the same time the Director General of the Benue State Planning Commission. A challenge of food insecurity?
I think let me just correct an impression first. You know, the commission before now was known as Benue State Planning Commission.
Okay.
You know, but there's a tweet in the name now. It's Budget and Economic Planning Commission.
Oh, okay.
So let me just put that
in proper perspective.
Exactly.
Very well. That's good.
So what the goals has been preaching issues of cooperative, just that I did mention earlier, that we within particular communities to start seeing how we can aggregate our farms, you know, together. Maybe within a particular locality, aggregate those lands together, and then you do all of those things, and then we sit. And this, to a large extent, that is what the model is all about. And the belief is that once this thing is done, let me also bring it to the notice of the people of Benue State that the state government also have been able to float a bank now. That is the Novus Microfinance Bank, which is open to most of these cooperatives. All you just need to do is just approach them to be able to see how you can put into your maybe your farming activities. And then next to no, I think the collateralization is going to even be by the activity that you want to do, and then make a profit out of it. See how you can make a return, then do that payment. So these are the things that the government has tried to structure in terms of agric, you know, to ensure that our farmers get the right yield. Aside that, the government again has given out fertilizers at subsidized rate, you know, 50% subsidized rate, as well as other farm inputs like sprayers, like pesticides, you know, at our local, at our divisional offices. You know, people have been buying, you know, in the entirety of the Benue market space. So we provide all those services, all in the intent of ensuring that they bring succor in terms of food to the Benue public. So these are some of the activities within the agricultural sector that the government is doing.
Okay. We would have really loved that if women are calling on this program to share with us what actually they are facing on the home front in the kitchen. A few days ago, one of my colleagues shared a newspaper headline which said women turn mathematician in kitchen, calculating the cost of food and all of that. And the lines are still open. We would love to hear from you. 0814-335-9292. 0814-335-9292. Send us a text message to 0912-699-9404. 0912-699-9404. Those are the lines to participate on the program. Professor Abu, in the whole of the bigger picture of all that the government is talking about, has already announced the suspension of taxes.
Yeah, the ultimate incidence of these policies on the market and on our pocket, our purchasing power. You know, so the common Nigerian, like I said, is on fixed income. He's worse off with the food inflation. So anything that's going to affect or incident directly on the availability, to the extent that he can purchase more bundle of food for a particular amount of expenditure, it's a welcome development. But as it stands now, at its own end, that is one, the affordability component now is the next component. Some are not even being paid. A lot of academic staff in the federal universities, we have been owed 4 months salaries. And until those monies are paid, you know, and with the rising cost of items, I'm speaking for, not to talk about pensioners who are on fixed income. They are worse off. So anything that will address the price in the market, that will increase the supply side to items, I think it's a win-win for them. So that's the ultimate, and we hope that government will take all the necessary measures to full intentions are realized.
So in your opinion, is this move or policy people-centered?
Yes. You know, of Nigerians. Nathaniel, just go to any social event on Saturday. You see adults putting bags in their pockets. These were things that children were doing in the time past and were pursuing children. Now it's adults. So that tells us that the student
in this move, the direct benefit not the citizen who is the Director General of the Benue State. the citizen who has no title, an average Nigerian, everyday Nigerian that faces the biting hardship of food inflation.
One of the key things has just been laid there about.
But before you expand your thoughts on that, I'll beg you to take this call. We have them waiting, so let's engage with a few that will come back. Good morning.
Yes, my greeting to you and the presenters, the guests in the studio.
Thank you. What's the name?
Yes, my name is Augustine Edo. I'm calling from Uruku, Makurdi here.
Okay, Augustine Edo, go ahead.
Yes, the issue of importing food to cushion the effect of food inflation and hardship, although it's a welcome development, but it's long overdue. In fact, it's the removal of fuel subsidy, the decision of this government, and the floating of Naira and other policies. We have not seen any positive move by this government to cushion those effects of the policies. And another question I'm begging to ask is, if this food are being imported, how are we sure the price will be controlled? Who are the people to mechanize or to regulate the price in the market? Then in each state, how do we ensure the free flow of these foodstuffs? Of food in the town than the village. The villagers are suffering.
Yes.
People could not even have access to food. If you go to the village now, we are sending food from here to the village. Normally, it was village that sent food to the town.
Yes.
So my advice to this government is that let it not be a trial. Maybe they are trying one way or the other, but let them have a policy that will cushion the effect of this, that will curtail this hardship in totality. Let this government not disappoint Nigerians like Buhari Teno. People are fed up already. So I encourage this government to try their best. Thank you very much.
All right, Augustine Edo, thank you very much. We appreciate you for calling in. That will be the last call we'll take on the program today because we need to gradually draw curtains.
Okay. Let me just complete my thoughts on the last.
Yes, you were just starting.
Yeah, I was just starting.
So please.
One thing that we need to understand is that the end game of this policy is how do we bring down the prices of this key staple food. That's the end game. And Professor Abu has just muted that. If that does happen, then indeed it will increase the real effect of money for the local man. That is the end game. That is number one. Number two is that with the importation of 240 tons of both maize and maize paddy as well as rice paddy as well as
yes, 250 metric tons actually.
Metric tons. Okay, yes. 250 effect. Good returns for businesses. And once they have raw materials in terms of intermediate inputs, to be able to see how they will now be able to bring up the final product for these items. Indeed, they are going to employ more labor, and like we had explained much earlier, once you employ more labor or possibly you do not send some labor back home in terms of unemployment, again, that also has an effect on the local farmer. So those were the thoughts that I wanted to be able to put across.
Okay, Professor Abu, beyond the 150-day window allowed for suspension of tariffs, duties, and taxes on the essential food items, beyond that, what should the government be doing to directly address the challenge of food insecurity in the country?
Should meet their immediate needs. One of the needs is, I won't be tired of mentioning, security of the farm environment. Two, it is the government of Father Alia that is qualifying Benue to go into dry season farming for the very first time. All down, we now have that opportunity. So for all those areas that will have opportunity for irrigation, we should also explore them. Doing a lot to get inputs, especially fertilizer and seeds, herbicides, to farmers at prices that they could afford, and that again too should be encouraged and sustained. If that happens, then we would have stimulated the domestic production system that will output or yields that will be significant to take the surpluses to the market. And like one caller did mention, we should export food. Nigeria can export food. Even if we cannot export food, Nathaniel, at least let us feed ourselves. But the idea of coming to this area, so if we address all these challenges at the smallholder farmer level, we should be able to. It is a lot of wealth for this country if we are able to be self-sufficient in food production, nothing else.
Okay, in fact, just for emphasis sake, when you mentioned we should be, would that be a sustainable approach? Because, like I mentioned, beyond the 150-day window about importation, duty-free, and all of that, if that happens, will it still be a sustainable approach to keep importing and importing?
No, our expectation would be that this is a once and for all stop. It's not something that is regular. The moment we adjust these factors of production and improve in person, now if these issues are addressed, it then means that productivity goes up. If productivity goes up, we now have social surplus. So that social surplus now goes into the market to augment the deficit for which the imported component was feeding. So there will be no need for the imports again, as the case will be. That is the overall picture. That will have been the end game. So the importation is not something that is regular. This one is enough to just kickstart, to cushion them. Subsequently, we pick up as the case will be.
Okay, Dr. Aondohol, what sustainable economic policies cutting across agriculture, food in particular, and addressing the general high cost of living Nigerians are grappling with? What are the immediate things that should be put in place?
When we started this, I opened discussions by saying that what the government is trying to do now, giving accessibility in terms of food and availability. One is the opening up of access routes. The corridors, there are, I think, about 3 or 4 corridors now that currently the government is trying to do, which they've already started. The one that's the coastal corridor from Calabar to Lagos, and then from the one from Sokoto to Badagry, and the one again from the one from Calabar coming through to Kogi, to Benue, Kogi, and then getting to Abuja, and the one from Nasarawa that is going to link up from Nasarawa to the northeast, towards Taraba and the rest, So of roads, and in between those lanes are going to be railway gauges that can help, open up and access or interlink close to about 156 local governments, communities, 216 farming communities, arable land within the neighborhood of close to 1 million arable land, and then close to about 7 special agricultural processing zones. That is massive. So these are long-term plans. Most of our economic problems, to a large extent, we can try to solve them. Because once all of these things are done, then indeed, the huge sums of money is spent, and that if it comes to strength.
All right, we will say our food security should not be import dependent.
No, it shouldn't be import dependent.
It's all right, and this is where we conclude on today's edition of Perspectives, which we discuss the federal government's suspension of taxes on staple food items in the country. I appreciate our lead panelist on the program, Godwin Abu. Thank you very much for sharing your valuable thoughts with us on the program.
My pleasure being here.
An associate professor of economics at the Benue State University, Makurdi, currently the Director General, Benue State Budget and Economic Planning Commission. Yeah. Dr. Jerome Aondohol, we appreciate you for your time with us on the program.
Thank you so much.
All right, dear listener, join us again on Friday for another edition of Perspectives. We appreciate your listenership. We couldn't take all the calls because we needed to allow the conversation to flow. We hope you will bear with us and tune in again on Friday for another edition of Perspectives. I am Nathaniel Nongu. Have yourself a great Wednesday ahead. Goodbye. I'll see you on Friday.